So the way we went. So Monday morning, I come back in there by myself. And when I walked in, the guy come running over. He said, "Hey, your check bounced." And I said, "I knew it would." I said, "But let me tell you about my wonderful weekend." The kids got any more? I have a few more things to add. Does anybody? Barb, are you guys all done? Okay. I do have a couple of things to say. And I'll go through it fairly fast. You know, they talk about 80 years, and this is a quote they didn't get to. It's not the years in your life, it's the life in your years. And I've had a little of both, years and a good life. And it's through the love of someone like June that makes it possible. But when I retired 15 years ago, Sally said, "Get up and thank the people, shut your mouth and sit down." Well, I said at that time, this is the only time I'm not going to do it exactly as she's told me. And I pretty much got up and thanked the people, shut my mouth and sit down. June says, and Lee said, "Are you going to say anything?" And June said he'd be sick if he didn't say anything.
Call 911.
Okay. But anyway, my ambition was to get shot by a jealous husband when I'm 92. Well, at 80, I'm getting there. June said it could be a jealous wife, too. She's been going to the doctor lately, and didn't hear that. She said she's pregnant. But I was going with her, and finally they came, she needs a gallbladder operation, but we didn't know what it was. And so when she came out of one of the doctor's offices, I said, "Well, what did the doctor say?" And she said, "He said I have the most beautiful legs he's ever saw in a lady my age." I said, "Did he say anything about your horse's rear end?" She said, "No, honey, he didn't say a word about you." And I just got to say, I'm very thankful for my 5 children. You can see what they do think of their dad, and I think just as much of them. When Andy got married 22 years ago, he worked at the Veterans Home at King. And when we went through the reception line, his boss, Ron Woods, and he's here someplace, and where Ron is back there, he came up to me and he said, he looked me up and down, he said, "Big Vern," he says, "you aren't 10 feet tall. You don't leap high buildings with a single bound. You're just an average human being." I don't know what Andy told him all those years, but he was proud of his dad. Must have told him a lot of stories. But my sister, this started out to be a reunion. Irene and her family have been out in D.C. and Maryland area for 50 years. And we don't get to see one another very often, so this is going to be a reunion. And Irene, we can't wait 80 years to have another one. No. She's 82. She don't look it. And she's a widow. Her husband died 2 years ago. If there's any bachelors out here, she'd be a pretty good guest. But I'd like to have her family stand because they didn't get introduced to her son Mike and her daughter Susie and his son Jeff. Where are they at and their grandchildren? If they would just stand and their wives and spouses, they'd welcome them. And we don't get to see them very often. My brother Gary over here he's a kid, he's 82. I mean, no, he's 72. I mean, he was much younger than us, and his wife, 71, okay. But I like Gary, his wife Joanne, and their daughter, and her husband, and their son, Craig, to stand and welcome them. I like Merlin and Elaine Ader. Merlin's 84. We have some good genes in our family. Our uncle went to 92 and won 94. And he fell off a roof and broke his hip when he was 93. So Merlin and Elaine were back. Elaine, where are they at? And Deanne said to me, "Merlin's looking younger than you yet." And he is doing good, and we didn't invite any relatives. We strictly from my family, and so Merlin and Elaine are double cousins. He's been a hard worker in our family, anything we needed, so he's like a brother to Irene and I, especially even more than Gary, because he was our age and grew up with us and our families. How many of you saw the program Pete Seeger had a birthday party? It was on television. He was 90 years old. It was a 3-day event, and he's a country folk singer. And they asked him, what do you think about this birthday party? And he said, I don't like it and I don't want it. Well, he had a hell of a good time for 3 days on television, and I'm having a hell of a good time too. I enjoyed it. But how many saw Walter Cronkite, you know, when he died here, and Andy Rooney spoke at his memorial service. And he got up and he said, Walter was a great friend, and I really don't know what to say. And he went over and sat down. And he says, excuse me, and sat down. Then a week later on 60 Minutes, he had his whole part, that 5 minutes at the end, was about Walter Cronkite. He said you go through life and you have 1 or 2 good friends. And he said, Walter was one of those. We were, for 60 years, we were war correspondents, we were television, and he went on to say how close they were. So I said to June, when we were going to have this party, how do I pick 1 or 2 close friends? It's hard to do. You can't do it. And I like people. So the people that we invited here, the kids said to me, who do you want? So it was the people that are here, besides the relatives, maybe 20 people, that I feel have been very close to me. And I'd like to start off with 2 of my, well, I want to go on to say, when you get to be 80, many are very close friends of deceased. And I can go on to old Jake, Jim Olson, Myron Dome, extremely good friend, and many others, Bill Buckley. And so you lose a lot of close friends, but I guess I'd rather get to be this age and lose them than be one of them. But the first one I'd like to honor, going back 65 years, is Herman Brunn and Ed Shannon here, right here. Herman, I went to high school. Ed, I want to tell a couple stories about him. You guys sit down, take it easy. Herman, we tell each other that we wouldn't have got through high school if we couldn't copy each other's papers, and I don't know which way it was, Herman, but we have a lot of fun. I joined the Guard when I was 16 years old. And right, that was 1946. No one wanted to be in the Guard. And they couldn't get anybody, and they had a recruitment contest. So I got Herbie and our good friend Isla Bradford's in Alaska, or he'd be here, and I got them to join. And he was about 16 and a half then, and I got the $10 first prize, and we went out and got drunk with it, didn't we, Herman? But Herman went on, was in there, I don't know, 35 years. He became the company commander of that company, and if you talk to him, he and that company won every war since World War II. But Ed and I know better, it was a war of drinking or something like that, I don't know. But Herman is a good friend. He turned out to be a barber, and he went to barber school with one of the students I had when I first got here, Jay Boyden. So he told me all about Herman, but I already knew all about him. He couldn't tell me anything I didn't know. But I went in to get a haircut from Herman about 20 years ago, and he got talking about old times, and pretty soon, I said, I just want a little trim. Pretty soon all my hair was gone. Now that's why you know I don't have any hair. And Ed, I'd like to, you've heard the song Big John, Nobody Gives Lip to Big John. Well, Ed has served in the Marines 2 tours of duty. He worked at Peter's Meats, and he weighed 300 pounds, and he unloaded a semi-load of beef every night and on a route. And he was big. They called him around Eau Claire, they called him Big Ed. And when Ed and I went out, I could talk pretty smart when I had Big Ed behind me. And I did talk too smart one time. Ralph Leslie, he was a retired boxer, a professional boxer. Him and his buddy were out, and Ed and I don't know what I said to him, but he turned around, hit me in the chin, and knocked my glasses, and knocked me flying. And he turned around and went after Ed. By the time I got to him, wrestled him down, and next thing I knew, we were all in jail. But we talked our way out, we said it was all a misunderstanding, and they let us go in the end.
Yeah, that's correct.
Ed and I, we raced stock cars for 2 or 3 years, and he worked for Peter's Meats, and we called that stock car Speedy Weedy. And he had brand new Buick cars back then, and he would drive those Buicks. They were Buick Centuries, 100 miles an hour down the road. He towed that stock car that fast, and that stock car went faster on towing behind Ed than it ever did on the track. But we did win a few races, didn't we, Ed?
You bet.
So Ed was I can tell some other stories, but I'll leave it go at that. Then we come to friends and neighbors, and I want to mention Ron Elmhurst came here 30-some years ago, and he was our ag coordinator, and he was an extremely good friend to Sally and I both. And when Sally was passing away, we knew she wouldn't live. I wanted someone to come and console me. Ron did. He came up and did that. So he was a good friend for both of us. And thank you, Ron. We moved out and come to eat the Klondike Corners, and we met Edna and Warren Sutton, Paul and Violet Bradoman, John and Gladys Fleshman. We went out many parties, we did anything. If there was something wrong, if I needed somebody to pick corn, bale hay or anything, Warren was there. But the biggest part, I had a ruptured appendix 45 years ago. I had 2 operations, I was in the hospital for a month. You can imagine what Sally went with 4 small children, not knowing if I was going to live or die. But Warren, John, and Paul and all them, we had cattle, horses, I don't remember, that the pump broke down, they come took care of it, and did a lot of things for her. But that's what neighbors are for. When you need them, they were there. And I can tell a lot of stories. Paul, when I bought the steam engine, it was 12 tons, it had 8-foot wheels, and I asked Paul, he had a trailer and a truck, and he would get it for me. Well, when he went over there to get it, you can't start a steam engine up and run it on the trailer. You had to go get a winch. Well, they were getting the winch, somebody stole the trailer. Well, 2 days later, they found the trailer and it was wrecked. But he got that fixed, and they got the steam engine home. So we bought a cabin up in Owen, and it was 12 foot by 16 feet, and we went up there to get that. And Paul, I asked if he'd do that. Well, we had an awful time loading it, but we got it loaded. Halfway home, they had a chimney, and we hit a high line and knocked the chimney off and broke the high line. The people were watching, and they were going to call the sheriff on us and put us in jail. Well, we talked our way out of that, and I gave my neighbors and I paid for it. Well, we got down the road about 5 miles from the 40 where we were going to take the cabin, and here was a car wreck, and there was police all over the place. And here we were without a permit. So they happened to know, they said, you got to park it right there, don't go 1 foot further. So I took, Bob Sadowski was on the county police, I knew him. I said, well, would you escort us if we can get a permit on Monday? So he said he would. But after all that ordeal, Paul said, Vern, if you want to move something else, get somebody else. Paul, where's Paul? Warren is 86 years old, and he's a little, Paul's in a wheelchair back there, but they're very spry yet. Where's Warren? Can you stand? He's back there. Paul's we talked about Mark and Tamara Nikolai. We went off to the lake. They're not here. Is Mark, I didn't see him. Was Mark and Tamara here? We moved out to the lake, and they've been great neighbors out there for 20 years. I had a fire in the garage. Mark went over and got it out. We were in Florida, and I had lathes and everything, and the insurance company didn't argue. They didn't want to replace an old lathe that was worth $500 to replace, could be $15,000, milling machines and stuff. He got me a $10,000 settlement anyway, and I put it in my pocket. June and I just went out to town, didn't we? I guess we brought some Viagra, I don't know. But anyway, we moved south, north of town 3 miles, and there's Todd here, Borgard, Todd, he's back there. You see how young Todd is? Stand up, Todd. he's only 27 years old, but I'm picking younger people. I plan on climbing a mountain when I'm 100, so I want to get younger buddies because all my older ones are dying off. Well, Todd and Amy, they take care of our place when we're in Florida. They mow the lawns, rake the leaves, and we got 1.5 acres of trees, and we mow them before we get back, and we look after it. And Dave Daniels lives across the street. He can't be here, but he's another one that takes care of everything. A tree blew down last week. He came over and chopped it down, cut it up, or cut it, and ground the stump out with his stump grinder while we were gone. So that's the kind of, and Todd does the same thing. Well, I have to tell you what the story that happened. That house has electric heat, has a gas furnace, it has a wood furnace. 3 types of heat. We're not there in the winter, so we don't need a wood furnace. Todd has a cabinet shop. His wood furnace was bad, so he said, I'd like to buy it. I said, no, Todd. We were sitting there with Dave and Todd, and I said, I'll give it to you. So I went in the house, and the packet came there, but I didn't put it in, didn't know anything about it. They opened it up, and the whole manual and everything, and the invoice was in there. It was $1,900. And Dave said, boy, he said, Vern, at your age, he said, that's a pretty good deal for Todd, but you're really going to get kind of screwed on the deal. I said, well, don't be too sure about that. I said, I have a friend in Florida that's 104 years old. I plan on climbing a mountain when I'm 100. I said, pretty soon that didn't get to be such a good deal. Dave looked like to him, he said, well, maybe you're the one that got it. But anyway, this is the kind of things you have. I like to go close friends. Myron and Joe Dome and her whole family, and Jimmy and Vicki and Howard. We've known Myron and Joe for 40-some years from the Saddle Club. They got us down to Florida. We've taken many trips, and her family's as close as she is. Myron died 10 years ago when Sally died, but great friends. I'd like to honor Dale and Jan Edlin. They came here. He was an ag instructor. We went to coffee and lunch, him and Sally, for 20 years. When we were going to go to Alaska, I said, do you want to take a trip? They went to Alaska with us. They're great friends. Dale and Jan, thank you. We have a lot of golfing buddies. Gene and Arlene Stengel are here, and Mary Rowell. Are they here? We lost a lot of, we've lost a lot of golfing buddies. Leo Sims, Ed Coakley, and many others. But it just isn't quite the same without those guys there.
I want to say one word about that. We helped him develop that ball retriever that he did. It's an excellent retriever, and we really put a lot of hours in developing that. We really didn't do much with the intricate part of developing it. But we stood on the bank waiting for him while he practiced. That old, you know, we used to be able to get done in 2 hours, but it took us 4 because we had to wait for him to improve a little bit on that retriever.
And Grandpa, you never caught him in on the deal. Come on.
Everybody needs a guinea pig.
We're still waiting for our royalties to come.
Larry is 85, little Larry back there, but he's still a good golfer. He has a little Parkinson's, but I'll tell you, you can't believe when he gets on a golf course, that doesn't bother me. He can hit that ball really good. But Gene can't see too good. He has trifocals, and Larry has a good memory. So anyway, we were out golfing. Gene says, where'd that ball go? And Larry said, I know, I can see it. We got down there, and Gene says, where is it? Larry said, I can't remember. I'd like to go with some other close friends. Terry Nijhagen is here. He came down from Superior. Where's Terry? Back there. Terry's worked on many of my, I've written many projects in many areas. Some of them were at the tech school. I got Leanne, one of my pre-employment projects, had it for 24 years. I had 4 or 5 instructors. She was out of college and she couldn't get a job. You have to have experience there where she went. You don't have any experience. So I hired her and put her down at Adams Friendship teaching Indians pre-employment how to apply for jobs, fill out applications. So that's how she got her start.
I found a new boyfriend too while I was
Oh,
there.
you did? But you didn't marry him.
No.
I just have to say a quick note. Leanne was 27 when she got married. She went through a lot of boyfriends until she found the right one. And I have my two granddaughters here. Nikki's 22, and Lissa's 20. You've got beautiful Andy's daughters. Want to stand up? Nikki and Lissa. Okay. Well, they both just ditched their boyfriends. And I said, well, you'll find new ones. I said, you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find the right one.
Find a prince, you gotta get the same.
Well, Terry, with my projects, he worked on them and also taught for me many courses. You know, when you teach, all you have to be is one day ahead of the student. You don't have to be an expert. But he could, Big Bill Buckley was that way. I get him to teach anything, and he was ahead of the student. But June and I, Terry knew Sally real well. And he lives up in Superior, Two Harbors, Minnesota. And June and I, when we were on our way to get married in Maine, and one Sunday morning, we walked into Two Harbors, we walked by a restaurant, and there was Terry looking out the window waving to us. I walked in there, and he said, "Why, you old devil, you got a girlfriend on the side?" And, but anyway, he didn't know that Sally had died. So it was kind of interesting how that came off. He was sure I had a girlfriend on the side, stepping out on him. Bill Summers is here. Where's Bill? Okay. Bill was a teacher, and he also took my night classes in woodworking, and he came home to take care of his parents who were elder. He taught overseas for 20 years, and he took every course we had down there. He was there 5 nights a week. So the woodworking tech instructor, he took those courses, got sick. Bill took over and taught that and many other things, and when we moved campuses, he was there, and he's a good friend of ours. He's come down to Florida to see us, and when he comes out, visit us and have a meal or something, he always says, "June, you need a new floor, or you need a new cupboard, or you need this or that," and she gets it. He came down to Florida, and he overhauled her house down there. So, Bill, I said, I can't afford you to have you around anymore. Vern Kiefer, where's Vern? He was our, where's he, a custodian? Him and his wife Karen come down to Florida and see us. Vern, when I had the gasification project, he was a great help, and he loved all the things we did. But one day I blew the gasifier up, and lucky it was, the gas was on the wall and blew the fan off. Vern was coming down the street a half a block away, and he heard that explosion. He was sure the building was gone. It was just the gasifier, wasn't it, Vern? Gordy Hasten here, but his wife Barb is here. Gordy has the used implement place east of town, where they have the flag and tractors, and we call it junk. Gordy says, no, it's merchandise. And he gets rich off that merchandise. Dave Lepke, where's Dave? He was a friend of mine at Bakerville. He got us into zoning. When we talk about sickness, the reason I got into health, they said 15 years ago I had leukemia. They did the bone marrow. They said you won't live 5 years. And Dave is the one that got me on the Sunrider program, and I'm still in it today. My blood work turned around within a year, and Dave and I are the ones that are going to climb a mountain when we're 100, and he's my best marketer of the rebound. He sells more than any of them, my stability system. And Dave ran against Don Hasenharl. He's quite a promoter. Don has been an assemblyman in this area for 25 years. Dave ran against him and almost beat him, but he wanted me to be his campaign manager. Well, I knew Don Hasenharl was a good friend. His wife taught for us at the tech school, so I was between two fires. I always said, if we could have campaigned for you, Dave, you'd have made it though. And then I'd like to just say a couple words about Andy and Carl, all their friends. Leon, Chris, Tom, because I was like a father to them, and I was the proudest that they did call my shop Big Verns School of Engineering. And then, when you're in Florida, I've been there 13 years, June 10. You develop a lot of good friends there because you're with them every day. They're from up north. You do a lot of things together. Lonnie and Bev Stevens, if I'd invited them, they would have come. I want to back up. I forgot one person. I forgot Jim Lang. I don't know how I missed you, Jim. I invited one student of all the students that I had. I taught for 12 years, but then I was in administration 29 years, I guess. But Jim Lang and his wife Jeanette. Where's Jim and Jeanette? Excuse me. Jim and Jeanette took our woodworking classes at night. It was both of them. It was a team. And they took every class we had 4 nights a week for several years. They went on to start a furniture manufacturing company, highly successful, and their son's run it today. Jim and Jeanette also stopped down to Florida to see us. But one of my best students' stories because he's highly successful.
You were the best teacher I ever had.
Thank you, Jim. Getting back to Florida, Lonnie was from Missouri, and we play poker a couple nights together. We golf, we go out. He's been on the board with me down there to get things done. A good best supporter. He would fix a tire. If you had a flat tire in Alaska, he'd come and fix it. As many others here would, but that's the type of person he is. We have Ken and Sonia Vogelin from Maine. June loves Maine. We were married there. And that's another story. When we were on the way to Maine, we stopped, it had a restaurant, and there was a bunch of hippie band there. And we were telling them we were on our way to get married. And they said, "You going to have any children?" June says, "Yes, we are. We've already bought a house close to a school." That shut them, they didn't know what to say. Well, Ken has an airplane. Edgar and Mildred Davis were the lobster people across the road, and June just loved hearing Edgar's lobster stories. We stopped to see him when we got married. Well, him and his wife both died. We've lost a lot of friends, but we've become friends with their daughter and her husband. He has an airplane. He flies it down there, and he takes June flying all the time. Well, Sonia is 15 years younger than him, and she's a beautiful lady. And so when she goes flying with Ken, my buddies, they tease me and they say, "Hey, we better watch that Ken. He's off flying with June there. You better watch what's going on." And I said, "Yes." And he sticks me here with that beautiful Sonia. You don't know what we're doing either, do you? But anyway, I have another another good golfing buddy. He's 92 in Florida, Dean Folk. He's worth $7 million, but you'd never know it. You wouldn't think he had a penny, and that's why we got it. But we play, Jimmy Dome, when he comes down here, we play a lot of golf. And we have another buddy, Sano, that he said, "Dean's better than us." He said he should give us a handicap. And Jim and I both say to Sano, we said, "If we can't beat a 92-year-old man at golf, we deserve to pay." We do pay, don't we, Jim? But Dean, I play him one-on-one. I love a competition. And so I take Dean on myself, and we play for $1 a hole or $1. We play for good money because it's a good challenge. He beats me 2 out of 3 times, so I've given him a lot of money. That's how he's got all his money. But one time I took $20 from him, and I said, "Dean," he gave me the $20, and I said, "Dean, I'm going to frame this." He said, "Well, if you're going to do that, Vern," he said, "give it back." And he said, "I'll write you a check." I'd like to honor a couple of other Rogers folks are here. Pat and Don Miller. Dan's going to be 80 years old. Where are they? Andy and Dee's, her parents are here. Harry and Verna Owens.